Good evening, everyone. We are holding in the middle of chapter 42. We studied until page 630. Just to summarize very briefly what we studied so far. Moses turned to the Jewish people and says, and now, what does God ask of you? Only to fear him. Ask the Gemara, what do you mean, what does God ask you? As if it's a very simple thing to ask. Fearing God is a major task. The Gemara answers, yes, for Moshe it was very easy. And therefore God is asking for a simple thing. The Rabbi is asking, after all, Moshe is not speaking about himself, he speaks about every Jew. So how the Gemara say it's very easy because for Moshe it's easy. But the Torah was given to the Jewish people as a whole. And I shared with you that it's impossible that Moshe underestimated his knowledge about the Jewish people. So at the end of the day, how can the Gemara say for Moshe it's easy? For Moshe it's easy, but that's not for me and anybody else I know. Says the Rebbe that from here we learn that which is stated in the Talmud on many occasions, that when God created Moshe, it is a Moshe that connects directly to God and inspires the people to connect to God through Moshe. That's why when they became free, the Torah tells us, "Vaya'aminu ba'Hashem uveMoshe avdoi." They believed in God and in Moshe. Their belief in Moshe was as equal to God. That Moshe exists in every generation. In addition, there is a part of Moshe that exists within each one of us. So last week we discussed, now today we talk about the tool that enables us to reach Moshe. But what we studied so far is that in me and you, all Jewish men possess a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses. And that spark enables a person to fear God without much challenges. In addition, God instilled in every generation a person who is considered the eyes of the generation because they have a clear vision and direction where and how, and they are the ones, the conduit by which the person can connect to God and have fear of God. So far, so good. What the rabbi is saying, there are many details that I am skipping because we want to move on. But the rabbi, if you read the words, the rabbi is saying that there is the body and the soul of Moshe that exists in every generation. So it's not just deep in my soul. When someone is chosen as the Moshe of the generation, and last week I expanded and I shared, the Rebbe spoke that every Jew can become a Moshe for another person. If you inspire your children to be more observant, if you tell your partner, your sibling, let's keep Shabbat, let's keep 1 meal a week kosher if I didn't do until now, you are the Moshe, the conduit that connects them to God. Says the Rebbe, there is part of the body of Moshe and the soul of Moshe in each one of us, and definitely one that is a leader of the entire generation. That's what we studied so far. His task is to remove doubts. His task is to show direction, to give direction, to be able to have a very clear path, knowing where I'm coming from, where I'm going. As the time goes by, Jewish leaders, those of us who have been to the JLI course that on Wednesdays, this week you're going to discover it to a very, very deep point, where you ask, how did the rabbis know? That's actually in lesson 1, I think, rabbis made a decision that was very questionable. lesson 3, last week I think we spoke about, the rabbis that decided that every town under the Holy Roman Empire must participate in the release of the prisoners. And the reason is because it is beneficial to all of the communities. At the time, you can ask, how did they know? Where was their certainty? And I shared with you that meant once they ruled it's a tax, it means a poor man has to sell his table or sometimes his dishes to pay for the tax. Later on, we saw for tens of years, 30 years later, 33 years later, there was not a single blood libel due to the fact that those men were released. So the ransom that was paid was actually proof that what the rabbis decided was the best, the only choice then. And it appears over and over and over. It is because they have a chip of Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe is directly connected to God. Moshe knows exactly what to do and not to do. Does it apply? Before I forget, this week's Torah portion I want to share. In the Torah portion of Mishpatim, last week we read about the Ten Commandments. In the giving of the Ten Commandments, God restricted the Jewish people from coming close to the mountain, and they couldn't even touch. If they touched the mountain, they will get killed. But there would be 74 men that were allowed to enter. And they are 70 elders, Moshe, Aaron, Elazar, and Itamar. I'm sorry, Elazar and Itamar, no. 72 people. And we read, there is much more to what I'm sharing, but just one point. In this week's Torah portion, we read towards the end of the portion of Mishpatim, we read about what happens on the mountain. It says, Vayochlu, Vayechezu et Hashem, Umareu ke'livnat hasapir. While they were sitting, the elders up there, they looked at God. And they saw that like a white brick, like a sapphire brick, a clear brick. And without shame, they kept eating their partying. And God said that for that, they're going to be punished. What was the punishment? Nadav and Avihu, who were part of the 70 elders, got killed. 5 months later, dedication of the Mishkan. Harry, you're familiar with that, right? The 70 elder was the Mitonenim. 2 years later, they came and complaining about the manna, and God punished them that all the elders got killed. Why would they kill? Because God did not want to disturb the party of the giving of the Torah, so he delayed their demise. The question that the rabbis asked, Aaron's sons were also part of the elders. They also went, Nadav and Avihu, but there were 2 more, Elazar and Itamar. He had 4 sons. Why were they not asked to go up? In fact, if you read about the order of teaching the Torah, Elazar and Itamar were greater than the Sanhedrin. Yet we don't see that they were asked to go up. There are many, many reasons. But even though it's this week's Torah portion, it's outside the context of the discussion. What I want to share is, when I studied that, I was asking myself, after all, they were the elders. They were very holy people. They should be able to do what's right. How come they failed? How come? The same question I have about Nadav and Avihu. Nadav and Avihu, they looked at God, and that's why they were punished. Why? If someone is so close to God that God allows them to go up the mountain, albeit not as close as Moshe or Aaron, and then the elders, how come they failed? They actually really got punished very severely. And the question comes even farther than that. Joshua, Yehoshua were one of the elders. The Nachmanides write that Yehoshua was one of the 70 elders. Yet we don't see that he was punished. So there are different answers. But in the context of our discussion, that's the lesson I took. That's when I studied it. That's what I learned. Being a holy man who studied Torah all day is not sufficient to do what Hashem wants. It's not sufficient to be connected to God in a way that we do not make mistakes. And I'm the last one to speak about the elders because I am not even the nail of the toe compared to those elders. So yet we see that they made a mistake. Joshua, you know what's unique about Joshua? We read about in this extra portion. He was Moshe's servant. When Moshe goes up the mountain, what does he do? He waits by the foot of the mountain. Did Moshe ask him to wait? No. If you want to go, you know Moshe is going to be gone for 40 days. They were told he's going. Why don't you go back to camp, spend time with the family, have dinners together, study Torah, and then 39 days later, take a Uber back to the mountain. What was the reason? And as I said, it goes even further, this question, but I'll stay here. And the answer is he was a student of Moshe. So where Moshe is, that's where he wants to be. Moshe is here, that's where I am. Moshe is there, that's where I am. You know why it helped him? Later on, he becomes the greatest leader after Moshe. But to me, he wasn't one of the 70, even though he was one of the elders, he wasn't punished. They were all standing on the same spot. 69 of them got punished. Yoshua, they was not getting punished. Yoshua was not a great elder. He wasn't the greatest of them. He was connected to the Moshe. In our generation, the confusion that takes place, even among leaders, is unfathomable. When you look at Moshe, a man that has a very clear vision, knows what's right, and is able to prove it continuously, consistently, this is the way, this is a representative of Moshe. I am very lucky, and I cannot be embarrassed because I'm very proud of my Moshe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, that until today, even though he is passed away from this universe 34 years ago, still his inspiration is very powerful, and I'm not even looking for a replacement, because there isn't any replacement. I think it should be stay very clear. That's why we need a Moshe in every generation. You look at other groups, you look at other leaders, and you see confusion. They try, they're great scholars, they study Torah, they inspire people to study Torah, but to represent God like Moshe, it takes a unique personality. And not everyone just that study Torah a lot or spend time all day study the Talmud becomes a Moshe of our generation. Let's talk a little bit about the Moshe that's in every one of us. It gives us the power of a human being. No one should only be a recipient. Everyone should realize that our purpose in life is both to receive, to absorb, but also to share, to inspire. So if I know this little, I can find someone who can benefit. If I know more, I can find others who can benefit. My goal is not just for myself, but for others. In that way, I am a Moshe for myself and for others as well. Today, Harry, you wanted to say something?
You mentioned that we have it in every generation, we have a Moshe that we speak and look up to. But I tell myself, even though no one can come close to the Rebbe, Allah Shalom, we had two other Gedolei Hador, the Nishtalzatz, and the Rav, and they were also Moshe in my eyes.
You're entitled to it.
No, I'm not saying that any competition between the three of them. I think the Rebbe spread Judaism more than anyone else could have done it, but these two also did their thing.
So I don't think there is a room here to even compare. It's not right. Adin Steinsaltz is a student of the Rebbe. Do you know that?
Yes.
So there is no comparison. The Rav, you said the Rav, who are you referring to? Rav Moshe Feinstein? No, who are you referring to? Kamenetsky? Soloveitchik?
Who was from Boston?
Soloveitchik. Soloveitchik was a great Torah scholar, but he wasn't reaching out. He didn't reach out to the masses. How many synagogues, how many people connected to Judaism through Soloveitchik? He was inspiring people with his depth of Torah. He understood the Torah in a very, very unusual way. And it came to him from his parents and grandparents, etc., for many generations. But you can't call, he is a Moshe, like every individual is a Moshe. But the Moshe of the generation could be, I don't have the right to dispute. All I say is the Moshe that I see. I think I shared with you before, somebody asked me, a chassid of another Rebbe, and said to me, why Rebbe, always the Rebbe. My Rebbe said, I'm talking about in the 80s. So he said, I don't understand, what bothers you? You have a Rebbe too. Why don't you say about you Rebbe all day long too? I'm very proud of my Rebbe. I wish you were as proud of you, Rebbe. And he said, he had no answer. They didn't have an answer. I don't want to spill over to areas that I'm not comfortable. I think I went to push the envelopes a little bit. So, says the Rebbe, we're going to go back to the bottom of 629. In addition, and beyond this, pervasive influence to the community as a whole, their descent in every generation sparks from the soul of our teacher Moshe, peace unto him, and they clothe themselves in the body and soul of the sages of that generations, the eyes of the congregation. For what purpose? To impart knowledge to the people that they may know the greatness of God and hence serve him with heart and soul. So therefore the Talmud says it's easy for Moshe. To fear God is easy for Moshe. But there is going to be a Moshe in every generation. For the service of the heart, that is, one's love and fear of God, is according to that da'at, according to one's degree of knowledge and understanding of God's greatness, as it is written, know the God of your father and serve him with all your heart and with longing soul. Thus, I'll explain it in a moment, in order to serve him with all your heart and with a longing soul, it is necessary to know the God of your father, to know and comprehend his greatness. This is taught in the Jewish people by the scholars of each generation, within whom sparks of Moshe are enclosed. And the Rabbi continues, only concerning the future Messianic era it is written, and they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, know God. Why? For they all know me. I'm sure you understood what I just said. I'm just going to explain that a little bit. King David, before he dies, he gives a last word testament to his son Solomon. And he says to him, Da et Elokei avicha, know the God of your father. The Hasidic masters are asking, why does he say to him, you should know the God of your father? You should have said to him, Guy, you should know you God. It's not the God of your father, it's you, God. Also, why does he say to him, no, da? It should say, learn, discover, serve you God. Why does know the God of your father? The Rebbe is going to go on to explain that God gave us a tool called da'at. That tool enables to visualize and affect my emotions. And that's the purpose of serving God. We discovered before that the best way to serve God is with the emotions. Remember, we talked about the natural love and fear, and we talked about the intellectual love and fear, if you remember. One that goes to the world of Atzira, and another one that goes to the world of Asiyah. Otherwise, it's like dead body without soul. I hope you remember that. Says the Rebbe here, in order for me to awaken fear of God, which is the foundation of the service of God that we already established prior in chapter 41, that you cannot serve God properly unless you have respect and awe for God. Love should come afterwards. That must start here. How does it start here? To discover the God of my father. The God of my father is the foundation of my existence. I'm paraphrasing it. And therefore, when I discover where did I come from, what do I deserve, and what do I have, how much God is giving me, how kind God is to me. When we discover that, It's not enough just to know it. Know it is in general, but we have to visualize it. And the Rabbi is going to talk about visualization again and again. That's the power of Da'at. Da'at is understanding something in a way that you'll not forget. Why is it important? Because that will affect my heart. Now I will have great respect for God. I don't want to offend God. There was I don't know how applicable this example for you, but for me, in yeshiva in the 60s, to have a cement mixer. Do you remember those machines that would have a big pot that keep turning? You throw in what? Sand, water, rocks, pebbles, and the cement itself, the powder, the limestone. The limestone is a part of the cement, right? Yes. And then when it mix, after it mixes, you have a wheel, you turn it, and it fills the buckets and the wheelbarrow, and you go, right? Once they were doing something, building in the yeshiva, and the yeshiva boys, they're always looking for action. They gathered around, and even though the break time is over, they stay there. You are fascinating and keep watching it. Later that night, the Rebbe, the teacher, a very famous rabbi, was teaching about this concept. And he said to them, do you remember how they put the different ingredients in the mixer and how the mixer and how the... Of course. Now, if I ask you in 2 years' time, would you still remember that vision? Of course we'll remember it. He says, that's that. That's what that is about. You don't just read about it. You don't just hear it and laugh for a moment. Like someone making comedy, 2 days later, you ask them, what did he say? They have no idea. All they do, either they laugh or they laugh at the comedian. It's engraved in them in a way that it's always very visual. There are things that are so clear in my head that nothing can take them away. It's experiencing. Not necessarily I saw it with my eyes. Things that people said, people did, experiences I have, that's the power of that. What the Rabbi is going to explain is that the cognitive, the intellect part of the human is divided into 3 parts. Chokhmah is the first flash of the idea. Bina is the expansion of the idea. But that is only in the brains. And that brain is removed. The neck is blocking the knowledge that I have here from affecting the rest of my body. That, the third and lowest component of the intellect, is the idea that I bring it to a visualization point, and it becomes so powerful that it will affect the way I feel. It will affect how I sense what is going on. Sometimes one person makes you feel so good, and the opposite. Not because you saw something, but because you experienced that person, you have heard them speak, you have heard them involved in challenges, whatever it might be, and it makes the person feel very nervous next to that person. When you are standing before a general, or you're standing before a prime minister, it changes the way we feel in our heart. Our heart pounds faster or slower, even though you may not see the person. It's not about loving a person or hating a person. It's about my experience in here that affects the heart. That's the point that I want to share with you. The way we sense in our brains, if it's a very powerful sense, it will cause my heart to experience that understanding. That is what that. Therefore, says the Rebbe, the Moshe chip that exists within me is in Da'at. It is the part that says, you read about, you celebrate Passover, God took us out of Egypt. In every generation, we must experience the going out of Egypt. You must contemplate, spend the time, and by the way, it's a mitzvah, to experience freedom, what it means, how was life before freedom, how do I share freedom with somebody else, How thankful do I have to be? Would I have the choice of wines if I wasn't free? Would I be able to stay in bed longer if I wasn't free? And you go through your daily activities during the day and night, and you say to yourself, what does it mean to be free? And that awakes the love and fear of God, respect for God, for what He has done for us. Every holiday, every day, every Shabbat. I just had this afternoon someone coming to my office crying. Why is he crying? Because he has challenges in his life, and he thinks it's the end of the end of life for him. Unfortunately, it's not true. Most people are going through the same challenges, if not more. But for that person, it's a little too much to carry. So I tried to give him some tools, but he says it's above my pay grade. So then I said to him, what if it was your last day of your life? If today is your last day of your life, would you be fearful and upset about what people might say or think about you? He said, no. I said to him, why? He said, because it's my last day. I may as well enjoy it. I said, so you wake up tomorrow morning and say to yourself, today might be my last day. And to be honest, it might be our last day. And why don't I push away for another time? Perhaps it's going to be. He says, this might work for me. In other words, when you visualize something, you are able to impact the heart. And the heart don't get excited or gets excited, gets respectful, get in love, all based on what's going on. There is a whole chapter, a whole section about marriages, about engagement, about dating. Some people, when they date, they are told it's a perfect match for you, but they have no heart desire. In shidduchim, in marriage, in engagements, in matching, there is a saying that there has to have the heart. The heart has to be pulled before the mind convinces the heart. In other words, if it was the person is convinced it's the right thing for him, and that's the only reason that he fell in love, he's not cheating, he's not lying, he's not forced to get married, then we suspect that is an issue that will come up later. Therefore, they have to have the feeling from the heart at the same time that the mind tells them it's the best thing for me. If the mind says it's the greatest thing for me, but I don't have a feeling in my heart, then we say don't do it. But other than that, this is the exception to the rule. Other than that, the Rebbe is teaching us that the mind can change the heart and make the heart desire or stay away from something just by having a deep contemplation to visualize. I'm going to use another example from the field of medicine. I'm not going to mention names, but I've heard it from a doctor, and I know it for a fact. Today, diabetes and sugar is a plague. In Israel, it's one of the two causes of death, diabetes and heart failure. Cardio, whatever, and sugar is the cause number one in Israel. And I believe here it's also, if not number 1 or 2, it might be number 3. Yes, Dr. Jim, what? Which number? Number 2? Okay. So what's number 1? Cardio. Okay. So Israel is the same way. The doctor can talk to a patient about sugar and diet change, and it will have zero impact. It will have an impact, but very little. And then 3 months later or 6 months later, the person will see a doctor and ask the doctor what happened. The doctor would say, how come? He says, well, I tried, but it's very hard. It's very, very hard. I tried, or it's very hard. Then came a device that you can put on your body, and it senses all the time the level of your sugar, the sugar level. It changed lives. I know here in our synagogue, and the doctor told me it's a life-saving, because it seems to be non-essential. Perhaps the insurance companies should fight it, but they don't. And the reason is people have changed their diet completely just because they have a device, either a separate device or on their phone, where they can look every moment of the day to see the sugar level. This idea works the mind, and the mind speaks to the heart. And the heart says, I don't want that meal. I don't want that food. The fact that a doctor who is 10 times more trusted than the device kept hacking and hacking didn't help. But the device is right in front of you and you can see it. There is no cheating. People used to talk to themselves, oh, I'll fast tomorrow. That will take away all the sugar from the day before. Or I'm going to be very careful. I'll drink a Diet Coke together with the hamburger. Today you have the sugar level. And once you look at the sugar level, you take a step back and you say, I don't want that. I don't want to have the same number. I need it to reduce. The idea of that, in other words, the inventor came up with the idea that until a person sees it all the time in front of their eyes, they would not change. What made them change? When they see it in front of their eyes. And that their heart changed. Now they hate the food that's sugary. The same is with many aspects of our life, that once it becomes very visual, very connected, it affects the heart because the brains is convincing the heart. So the point that I want to make is, when the Rebbe says there is a Moshe in every generation, says the Rebbe, everyone can awaken his fear and love of God. As we discover, as long as we are being able to tap into the power called Da'at, that powerful aspect of my brains will enable me to affect the way I love and feel of God. And here is the Rebbe is going to say. So King David, on his deathbed, he tells King Solomon, his son, Da et Elokei avicha, know the God of your father. Now we understand why he told them no, not learn, not study, not discover, not serve, but know him. Because if you know God, it will affect all your action. You will do what's right and you will stay away from evil. But he also mentioned the God of your father, because the God of your father refers to the start. Where did everything came from? Realize that you are in the throne. You're the king because of your father. You didn't earn it on your own, and you are appointed by God with all the talents that God gave you. Got to be appreciative. You need to contemplate it all day long. You need to have a device that keeps reminding you. And the Rabbi is going to get into it in a moment. I'll just say that spark of Moshe in each one of us, like a diamond in the depth of the ground, and needs to be unearthed and then cleaned, remove all the mud and the dirt. But in addition, it needs to be polished. The polishing will bring the beauty of the diamond. If you clean it out of all the sediment and all the whatever stuck to it, it's not sufficient. The diamond will shine, and the beauty of the diamond will be expressed only when you keep polishing it in a certain way. That's when it will have the impact of a diamond. So says the Rebbe that in the world to come, meaning in the Messianic era, we will not need that. No one will have to inspire anybody because everybody will be inspired by themselves. Says the Rebbe, continue. However, the essence of knowledge, which leads one to serve God with his whole soul and heart, is not mere knowing alone, that people should know the greatness of God from authors, that is, sages and spiritual guides and books. It's not enough to study Torah. You cannot go to Barnes and Noble and look under Jewish books and take off the shelf books and read or study Torah. It has no impact. I think I started. There has to be a human being imparting the information and inspiring. Without a teacher, you don't have it. That's why the biggest part of Torah is oral Torah. It was codified in a Mishnah and the Gemara, so it shouldn't be forgotten. But the way to study it is with a teacher. That's why in yeshiva, when we study bechavruta, with chavruta. Chavruta is a friend, not one by himself, but with a body. And the reason is because it has to be inspired and not just taught. But the essential thing is to immerse one's own mind deeply into those things which explain the greatness of God and fix one's thought on God with strength and vigor of the heart and mind. So I can be studying the Haggadah all day long. How do we celebrate Passover? By celebrating a Seder, and everybody gets together. So one inspires the others. There is no one that cannot inspire somebody else. It doesn't matter how scholarly the person or how little they know. They are able to inspire people about freedom, about connection to God. That's the idea of the Torah. The study of Torah should not remain as knowledge acquiring from reading books. That misses the point, because the purpose of studying the Torah is to inspire a person to serve God. And to serve God, you need that. You get that when you have someone who inspires you, a Moshe that comes out that inspires you. Until his thought shall be bound to God with a strong and mighty bond, as it is bound to a material thing which he sees with his physical eyes, and upon which he concentrates his thought. Just like when you see something, it's very hard for us to give up. Some people are addicted to chocolate, others to ice cream. Another group would be addicted to cheesecake. When you talk about it, I can talk about it all day long. You can stay away from it. I can tell you I have it in my car, I have it in the refrigerator. But what if I bring it here? It's very difficult, people who have the desire for that, because that awakens the heart's desire, and I must have it. When one does so, he is mightily bound up with the object of his thought and is unable to free himself from them. Thinking about God and his greatness should be done in the self-same, all-absorbing manner, and thereby the thinker will be truly bound up with him. For it is known that Da'at connotes union, as it were an Adam Yada knew Eve. When the Torah tells us that Adam and Eve connected in a physical intimacy, the Torah tells us Adam knew Eve, and a child was born. Because that is the part of the brains that actually connects to the heart. It brings the emotions, and the emotions awaken the action. And when we study it in chapter 3, we expand on it much bigger. I'm skipping the commentary. The rabbis continue. This capacity and this quality of attaching one's dad to God, so that he not only understands but also feels godliness and so become wholly united with him, is present in every soul of the house of Israel by virtue of his nurture, Yanika, literally suckling, from the soul of our teacher Moses, peace unto him. That's why in the Chabad movement, there have never been a movement to have one large synagogue, one big synagogue. When I moved to town, I've connected with many members of the other movements, conservative reform. I can mention a name. Some of you remember Dr. Larry Fink. Anybody remember that Larry Fink? Yeah. He was the medical director of Doctors Hospital, a neurosurgeon, very well known, one of the greatest doctors, a huge, unusual smart man. And he wanted to study Talmud. He came from Maryland, where he was a cantor of a 1,200 family congregation. He came to town, he joined the conservative temple, and he wanted to study Talmud. And he asked the rabbi for studying, and the rabbi came, and he saw that he can teach his rabbi. As he would tell me many years later, I wanted to have elementary school, and I got a preschool level of study Talmud. So he started asking around, and one of his partner's wife, a member of the community, told him, reach Chabad, reach Rabbi Steinmetz. Until then, he had no connection to Chabad. And he reached out, and we started studying. For 12 years, we would have a Talmud study every Monday at 1 o'clock. He had a TV show at 2 o'clock. And many times, he would never tell me we have to stop. And he would tell me the highlight of his week is this Talmud study we did. And even though the crew sometimes would be 15 minutes late, they would wait in the waiting room. I would see when I left his office. So Dr. Fink told me many years back that when I tried to help bring the Chabad of Bradenton, I brought down Rabbi Mendy. He said to me, I don't understand you. Don't you realize that you will take away some members of your congregation? I said to him, I don't understand. You think that I want to have the largest congregation in town? He says, of course, that's the pride of a temple, of a synagogue. How many members? Aren't people asking you how many members you have? I said, people ask me all the time, but it means nothing to me. So he said to me, so what's the goal? He also trained me the phrase that's called, when you reach a point where you have a breaking point where you have enough members, it's called
break even one?
Not break even.
Quota?
No, not quota.
Too many. Zenith?
I remember. It's a phrase I always forget. He explained to me. So
It's part of that then. It's not part of that, you know.
when every business reach a point when they have enough customers or enough business, they don't have to worry about their existence.
Autopilot?
No.
What? Break even? Yes,
I said break even is
No such thing.
Yeah.
No such thing as you don't have to worry about. You have to worry about the business.
I'll find it.
So what happened then? Oh,
I'll tell you the story.
What's your saturation point?
Point of no return.
Here it is. Critical mass.
oh,
It took him a while to teach me critical mass. He says to me, are you sure that you have reached critical mass? When he explained me what critical mass, what is critical mass? Anybody heard the phrase before? Critical mass means you reached a point where you have enough business that you don't have to worry that you might fold. And from this point on, all you have to worry is continue earning more business. So me and Dr. Fink did this exercise over the next few times. What does it mean, critical mass for Chabad? And once he was convinced, he was on the board, and he also voted for bringing Rabbi Mendy. But the point is, I want to share what I explained to him. I explained to him that this makes my life easier. Because the Chabad idea, it's not just the Chabad, it's the Hasidic community. That's why you have Shtiblach, and I'll talk about it in a moment, is that the member will have a personal interaction and relationship with the rabbi. Not so the rabbi controls, not so the rabbi gets donation, but the Torah is not a book in the shelf. The Torah is not knowledge you read in bedtime or you read on Shabbat table. The Torah is something that's alive, that needs to come into my life and affect my heart. That's why every celebration is with food, with party, every occasion, marriage, bris, even mourning, the loss of somebody. What do you do afterwards? Everybody goes to the mourner's house for a meal. Why is there a meal? To internalize all the relationship, all the experience. So if you have a rabbi of a congregation of 500 families, they need the other rabbis' help and the interaction. I've heard here, we have members here who told me that for 5 years they paid dues, 5 years as members in a temple here. They never been called to the Torah. Here they came as a guest and they already called to the Torah. Their experience is connection with God. And the rabbi is just facilitating, helping. So when you have another rabbi, you are establishing more relationship, more connection. When Dr. Fink understood that, he says, oh, now I understand. Now that's why if you go in Borough Park, have any shtiblach. A shtibel means a small house, a mini house. Every time there is a group of men, they form a shtibel. They have a rabbi. They are not fighting another place. They are not disgusted with the rabbi of the other place. They just want to have a personal interaction with God. So they want to have a rabbi. They want to have a congregation where they feel very close with. My children today in Crown Heights, they have class synagogue. When I grew up, in my group, my class was 30. We were 30 or 31 students in the class. When Mendy, there are 150 in the class, that in different yeshivas, a bunch of yeshivas, but the same age, 150. Today it's maybe 250. So what happens when they get married? They want to have the experience the same as they were raised. So when he goes to Crown Heights and he spends a Shabbos, where does he go? A class synagogue. They form their own synagogue just for their class. So I would not be feeding there. They have great respect for the elders, but they don't care for the elders because that's not their experience. My other sons, they have their own class. They rent, they pay rent, they hire someone. One of the boys, one of the classmates, is assigned a rabbi, another is a rabbi, and that experience brings them connection to God. But if you're a member of a temple, and I'm not here just bashing conservative reform, I say the same even if it's an Orthodox, where you pay your dues, and you show up, let's say once a year, twice a year, maybe even once a month, but there is no personal interaction. You miss the whole point of Judaism. And that's what the rabbi is saying here. You have a Moshe, the Moshe of the generation, one, but there are many Moshes in every community. One who's trying to be the biggest and the best. They are depriving Jewish members of the community. Now, if it was people like me who live here in town, many of them, they can connect themselves. But here we're dealing with people that the synagogue is their only source and connection to God. They don't know right from wrong. They don't have the experience of being brought up as in a Jewish life. How much more so they need the rabbi or someone who is knowledgeable to help them connect. That's why the rabbi is so essential to a synagogue. It's not because the rabbi should worry about his payday. It's because the rabbi is the one without which there is no connection to God. You can have all the books, you have a librarian, you can have someone running services, you have a cantor, you can have a Torah reader, you can have someone who explain the Torah, but they do not bring the Torah and God alive to the person. They were missing the whole point. Did I make myself clear? Okay. Ali, any questions?
No.
So, that's why if you go around Borough Park, for example, in every street you'll find a synagogue. In every street you'll find 2 synagogues. And the reason is these people, they don't need a rabbi to tell them how to pray, but they want to have an experience to God. And that's when they do it in a homey, personal experience. Where I grew up in Kfar Chabad in a village today, literally every neighborhood that is built, they add a synagogue. Now they have 2 in the neighborhood, 3 in the neighborhood, and there is no infighting, there is no fights, there is no politics. There is a rabbi for this synagogue, a rabbi for that synagogue. It actually makes life much richer, because if I like the speaking of one rabbi, I go to that rabbi. If I like the other rabbi, over there they serve better cholent. In other place, I'm not joking, there is a synagogue that was by my nephews in honor of their brother, called Israel Love, Ahavat Israel, because their brother Israel was killed in Gaza. They open up, they stole a building. They took a building against the will of the administration, but in the first week there were 50 young men that do not go to synagogue, but they wanted a young place to go to. And the administration of the village, the board, couldn't refuse it because they saw who is attending. So not only they didn't take away from other places, they were they see the inspiration. So what's the highlight of that congregation? That they serve the largest variety of beer after services. Now, to me, if I drink one can of beer, the day is gone for me. But for young people, beer speaks to them. So many of the youngsters get out of bed, otherwise they wouldn't, so they can enjoy a prayer and say to themselves, afterwards, we're going to drink different types of beers, whatever beer. That's what they made. And now, a block away to the right, to the left, to the east, there are synagogues, but they did not accommodate those people. Now we want to make sure it's accommodating. It has nothing to do with paying dues. It's nothing to do with who is the rabbi. It's nothing to do with who trying to hurt or take away. It has to do with serving an individual on a personal level. Once you have that connection, that's what Judaism is all about. I think I spoke too much about it, but I think it was important. I want to continue reading a little bit. We're not going to finish, not today, not the next lesson. Okay, you know what? We're going to stop here. Before we close the books, what we studied is that you have a Moshe in each one of us, and there is a Moshe of every generation, and as the Rebbe spoke, everyone should be a Moshe. What's the idea of Moshe? To bring the Torah and God alive, to make me sense God, to respect God, to have awe for God, to have appreciation for God give us, and to realize God can take it at a moment's notice. And by living that life, we are able to serve God and live the Jewish way. Other than that, Judaism will fall apart. As we see other movements that are based on knowledge and beautiful building and large congregations, it's just not holding water. It's literally falling apart. And Rabbi will continue how we utilize the tool called that, and to be able to, so to say, turn the engine and connect the human with his heart. Just as I conclude, I want to share that next Monday I will be out of town. I'll be in Israel. I'll be traveling to Israel at that time. So we will skip next week, but we'll meet in 2 weeks, God willing. Thank you very much, everybody.
Next Monday morning, yes.
Good night, everybody.